In this video I'm going to introduce you to Tabular. I'm going to show you a few shortcuts that you can use, and also I'm going to explain the importance of Tabular tool, which is this button here. If you're familiar with Excel, you probably know that you can use worksheet protection to prevent people from making accidental changes or limiting what changes they can make to a sheet. Tabular uses this concept quite a lot. So for example, if I wanted to change the business name here and I select the cell and try and type directly into it, I'm going to get this error message. So let's press OK. So in order to be able to change this, I need to use Tabular tool while having the cell selected, and here now I can have this input box and I can change the name. That holds true for all of these cells on this page, but it also holds true for a lot of cells throughout the Tabular workbook. While I'm here, let's explain this bottom cell here, this credit terms. So if you put in a number of days here, let's say 5, then the due date which will appear on your invoice will be 5 days from the date of the invoice. You can just leave that blank, and then the due date and the invoice date will be the same. Now, bearing in mind the importance of Tabular tool, let's go through each of the tabs and I'll explain where and how you can use Tabular tool. So let's go to Navigate and Transactions. Now, I explain how to enter transactions and how to allocate them, etc. in other videos, so if you're not familiar with that, then please check them out. But first of all, let's suppose we wanted to edit, say, the reference on a transaction which has already been locked. So for example, we have this transaction here. You can see that the transaction has been locked because with this tick. So if I tried to edit this directly in the cell, I'm going to get an error message. That is not true for transactions which haven't been locked. So for example, if I added a new transaction using this button up here, I'm free to type directly into the reference cell. I'm just going to delete that transaction for now by clicking on in the type column and using Tabular tool, and it's just going to ask me if I want to delete. Let's say yes. So back to this transaction up here. Let's say we want to edit this cell. And you do that by clicking Tabular tool, and it will ask you if you want to edit, and then we're free to edit. The same is true for the description and the analysis cells. You can edit them because they're free text cells. If we wanted to remove a link group, now I explain what a link group is in more detail in another video, but basically it's a way for you to allocate payments against invoices. So if I filter on this number 1 here, let's say filter on this sales value, I have this link group. You can see here we have £198 worth of invoices which has been allocated against a £198 transaction. But let's say we made a mistake in there and we want to remove that. I could do that by clicking any one of these ones and pressing F3, which is the Tabular tool shortcut, and it's going to ask me if I want to remove the link group. So if I say yes, then it takes it out, and we can then edit that in however way we want. I could remove that, and you can see this is everything. But please check out my allocating payments to invoices video for more information on this. I'll give a more detailed explanation. Let's now move on to the Contacts tab. Here's where you enter your suppliers and your customers. Let's suppose I wanted to change a supplier to a customer. Here if I selected this one, I can do that by hitting F3 or pressing Tabular tool, and we can cycle between whether it's a customer or a supplier. If a contact has already been used in a transaction, and you can tell that from this cell here, then if I try to change it, clearly I'm not allowed to do that, so you'd have to enter a new customer or supplier. The same thing holds true for the other cells such as address, VAT country code, and VAT number. So here I could type directly into this cell, so 1, the street, no problem there. But if I try to do that in the cell above, I'm going to get the error the error message that we've seen before. That's because this customer has already been used in a locked transaction. So it's important that we defend against those accidental changes. Of course, I can use Tabular tool while having the cell selected, and then I can change the contents of the cell. Notice in the cell above I have these vertical lines. That's important because if you are using Tabular to produce sales invoices for your customers, then vertical lines will delimit the new lines for entry onto the sales invoice address. Let's now move on to the GL accounts. This is very similar to what we've just seen. You might want to change, for example, the description of one of the GL accounts. So here I'm free to do that in this one, but I can't do it for an account which has been used in a locked transaction. So same thing, if I try to type directly, I get the protection error message, but I can obviously change it by using Tabular tool. So let's just cancel that. I can use Tabular tool on here to set an account code as a bank or any other control account code that I want to use, but here I could type in bank and then I can turn that into a bank account. What that means is that it'll be used for those bank transaction types like bank payment, bank receipt, purchase payment, etc. There is a very handy shortcut on here. If we go to the top of the table and just look for that, hover right on the top line, and you'll see this downward pointing arrow. If you now click, and then with the entire column selected except for the heading, we can then use Tabular tool, and that's going to ask me if I want to unlock this column for editing. That can be really useful because you might at times have a lot of changes to make in terms of getting them under the right subheading in your P&L or balance sheet. You can see here the ones that have been highlighted in red are the locked transactions, so you have to just take care here to make sure that you don't make any accidental changes. So here, for example, I could now change this to debtors less than 1 year, let's say. And then I could just drag that down, and the changes can be made very quickly. If we look now at any of the report tabs, for example the balance sheet, to set our report dates we need Tabular tool again, so we need to select the appropriate cell and then we can use Tabular tool to change it. So let's change this to 15/4. The way Tabular works is it will always use end of months, so it will automatically use a whole month. If we then press refresh report, then we can start analyzing our balance sheet. And that is pretty much it for Tabular tool. Thank you very much for watching. If you have a comment, then please leave it in the box below. Thank you.